A marathon FMX race that ended in tragedy, a horrific helicopter crash, and a lethal base jump. These X Games legends went to heart-pounding extremes and tragically passed before their prime. BMX rider Pat Casey, a veteran of the Vans team, was an absolute monster on two wheels. Casey was the very definition of an innovator, a man with an incredibly deep bag of tricks, twists, and flips. He was also an expert transition rider, meaning he virtually never failed to stick the landing. Turning pro at just 14, Casey promptly began attracting attention for his sublime skills, and at the X Games he medaled 3 times, taking bronze in the BMX Freestyle Park event in 2012, silver in 2013, and gold in 2021. But unfortunately, during a 2023 practice run, he lost his life. On June 7th, NBC San Diego reported that Casey had been involved in an accident at Slayground Motocross Park in Ramona, California. Shockingly, he missed his landing while completing a jump on a motorcycle, landing askew and causing the bike to fall on top of him. Emergency responders arrived quickly but were unable to help Casey, who died at the scene. In an Instagram post, the 29-year-old's wife, Chase, movingly eulogized her husband. She wrote, "The world looked at you the way you looked at me. Our children are strong, and I know that's because of you." South Lake Tahoe's Kyle SMAINE was seemingly born in a halfpipe. Whether on skis or a snowboard, he attacked them fearlessly. An X Games regular, SMAINE took home a gold medal after winning the halfpipe event at the FIS Freestyle Ski and Snowboarding World Championships in 2015. In 2023, 31-year-old SMAINE was in Japan taking action shots for a tourism campaign when disaster struck in the form of every skier's worst nightmare, an avalanche. During a free ski with fellow pro skier Adam Yu after the day's shooting had concluded, an Austrian skier who had hooked up with the pair triggered the slide. Speaking with Mountain Gazette, Yu said, "We had no camera gear with us. We were going out for fun. We heard the crack. We realized it is a big one. We started running and then we got hit." Yu was buried several feet deep for about 25 minutes before rescuers responded, and he somehow walked away unscathed. SMAINE, however, was not so lucky. He, along with the skier who had triggered the avalanche, died at the scene. 29-year-old Sarah BURKE was one of the best freestyle skiers on the planet. She pioneered the superpipe event, which is as hardcore as it sounds, a half pipe up to 22 feet tall and 64 feet wide, with a length of at least 400 feet. The superpipe can dominate the most talented of extreme skiers, but BURKE dominated it instead. Not only did she take home 4 gold medals at the X Games, but she was also the owner of 5 World Cups and multiple World Championships. The year before her 2012 death, her gold medal in the Euro X Games came when she stuck a virtually unheard of 540. Shockingly, her death came during a simple practice run in Utah. BURKE tore her vertebral artery on the landing, causing severe bleeding, depriving her brain of oxygen and causing her to go into cardiac arrest. She was airlifted to a Salt Lake City hospital where she held on for 9 days before succumbing to her injury.
The freestyle skiing world has lost its pioneer. It's lost its Johnny Appleseed.
Shane McConkey was a skiing legend, but even pushing the boundaries of that sport was not enough to quench his thirst for adrenaline. He was also a fearless rock climber and base jumper, and he was known to sometimes combine these pursuits in ways that would buckle the knees of the most fear-challenged athletes. He was a free skiing pioneer, an international skiing champion, an X Games gold medalist, and the star of 26 skiing films that exposed the sport to an audience of millions. In fact, it was during the filming of his last movie that it all came to an end. During the 2009 filming of a ski base jump, which is precisely as dangerous as it sounds, McConkey's skis became entangled and failed to detach. This would have caused them to become entangled with his parachute, though Tahoe Quarterly reported that McConkey did not panic. While airborne, he managed to resolve the ski issue, but he did not have time to pull his chute. The unfortunate equipment failure ended the life of a man revered for his dedication to his sport. He was 39 years old. Not many folks are more comfortable on a bike than Metal Militia FMX rider Jeff Ox Kargola was. He started riding at the tender age of 12, and by 16 he had turned pro. From 2001 to 2010, he competed in the Moto X events at every single X Games, taking home a silver medal in the Best Trick category in 2005. He also dabbled in off-roading, racing superlight trucks in several events in later years. In 2011, he was participating in a combination of those two pursuits, an off-road 1,400-mile FMX race titled Rip to the Tip, which took place in Mexico. At some point during the competition, Kargola lost control of his bike and crashed. He was airlifted to a San Clemente hospital, but died of internal bleeding and a catastrophic head injury. He was only 27. Kargola's death was an added reminder that even the best extreme athletes put their lives on the line every time they compete. Speaking with ESPN, Jay Schweitzer, the director of a Metal Militia video featuring the young star, said, "He was an all-or-nothing kind of guy, but he could also handle a bike better than just about anybody in the world. I can't even believe the news that he's gone. Just last week, I was out shooting with him at Danimals, and he was at the top of his game, riding like I've never seen him ride before." If Colin McRae was a rally car legend before 2006, it was at a rally event at that year's X Games that he became a rally car deity. Driving a Subaru WRX STI, McRae was coming around the track's final turn when he miscalculated a jump. The vehicle rolled until it somehow landed right back on its tires, and McRae cruised to a second-place finish without breaking a sweat. That finish was only a half-second behind winner Travis Pastrana, who was simply gobsmacked. After the race, he said,
"Dude, Colin McRae is straight up a god. This guy comes out here, I can't even believe he rose the car and I don't even know if he lost time."
Unfortunately, it was McRae's penchant for pushing vehicles to their absolute limits that proved to be his undoing. In 2007, he was piloting a helicopter that was also carrying his 5-year-old son, the child's 6-year-old friend, and 37-year-old friend Graham Duncan. McRae was flying too low and the helicopter crashed, killing all on board. A later inquiry would find his flying to be imprudent, as the BBC called it. McRae's family maintained that it was impossible to know what caused the crash, but it appears that the driver's hunger for daredevilry is what likely led to the tragedy. Australia is not exactly known for producing champion snowboarders, but Alex "Chumpy" Pullin was looking to change all that. Hooked on the sport since the age of 8, Pullin made his Winter X Games debut in 2008. In 2010, he represented his country at the Olympics, taking part in the Winter Games in Vancouver. He was a World Cup gold medal winner, X Game medalist, and 3-time Olympian. One could make the argument that without him, Australian snowboarding would still be a footnote on the world stage. Unfortunately, his contributions to his beloved sport ended in 2020, as he passed away at 32 after a spearfishing mishap. Snow Australia, the national organization for Australian snow sports, issued a statement calling Pullin a role model and a leader. His teammates uniformly chimed in on social media to agree. Fellow Olympian Jared Hughes wrote on Instagram, "He truly paved the way for other snowboarders in Australia and will leave behind an incredible legacy. R.I.P. Chumpy. It was an honor to be teammates and have raced alongside you." Ken Block entered the world of sports as a marketing executive, helping to found DC Shoes in 1994. But after a decade or so of that grind, he decided he'd had enough of sitting on the sidelines, so he took up rally driving, which it turned out he was rather good at. In 2005, he was named Rookie of the Year on the U.S. Rally Circuit. Over the next 8 years, he would pile up the accomplishments: 3 second-place U.S. finishes, 5 X Games medals, and a spot in the World Rally Championship, where he was the first American to ever compete. Sadly, Block passed away at 55 after a mishap involving a completely different kind of motor vehicle. While snowmobiling near his home in Park City, Utah, he was navigating a steep downhill slope and the vehicle upended and landed on top of him. He died at the scene. Hoonigan Racing Division, the rally company he co-founded, memorialized him in a statement. Ken was a visionary, a pioneer and an icon, and most importantly, a father and husband. He will be incredibly missed.
Saying goodbye to a dear friend, a mentor, so much that Ken was to all of us and to Hoonigan.
Hundreds of athletes have risked their lives in pursuit of X Games glory, but Caleb Moore, who was capable of performing feats of snowmobiling that few would even have the courage to try, made an attempt that resulted in tragedy. Just before his fateful run at the 2013 Winter X Games, he spoke to the press about the first time he ever stuck a backflip on an ATV. "It was the most exciting moment of my life, and the most stressful, heart-pounding moment of my life, too." During the televised event that followed the interview, Moore crash-landed while attempting such a flip on a snowmobile. He was rushed to the hospital but died the following morning from blunt force chest trauma. He was only 25. As a result of the incident, ESPN canceled all snowmobile freestyle events at X Games Teenas the following month, and the best trick competitions were also nixed that year. Caleb's brother Colton continued on in his memory, winning the gold in snowmobile freestyle in 2014. 3 years later, he suffered a spinal cord injury trying to become the first to land a double snowmobile flip in competition at the X Games, though he survived the accident. A regular X Games competitor and extreme skier, C.R. Johnson nearly died while filming jumps at a ski resort in Utah in 2005 after colliding with another skier. That incident left him hospitalized and in a coma for 10 days. Regardless, it did nothing to dampen his love of the sport, even throughout a tough and painful recovery. In 2010, he was making his way back professionally. He had just placed third in an event in France. But while he was training at his childhood stomping grounds in California's Squaw Valley, tragedy struck. Summit Daily reported that Johnson was attempting to negotiate a steep chute laden with rocks when he fell, spun around, and hit the back of his head. He was, of course, wearing a helmet, but it was not enough to protect him from a blow of such velocity. The 26-year-old died on the slope due to blunt force head trauma. Jim Rogers of the Squaw Valley Ski Patrol said, "This is a man of very, very strong skiing talent. This young man had been a fixture here at Squaw Valley for years. He grew up at Squaw Valley."
One of the most naturally talented bike riders ever to touch a bike in the history of two wheels.
14-time X Games gold medalist Dave Mirra wasn't just a BMX icon. He virtually defined his sport, winning championships, setting records, and blazing trails, both literal and figurative. He was a two-time Olympian, taking home a silver medal in the 1996 Games in Atlanta, and he was even a television personality, hosting the reality series Real World Road Rules Challenge from 2004 to 2005. He was simply a giant of extreme sports, but behind the scenes, he was quietly struggling with a terrible health issue. Mirra suffered a fractured skull in a car accident when he was 19. This, combined with the many concussions he sustained over the course of his BMX career, is thought to have contributed to his chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a degenerative brain disorder common to football players. The diagnosis was confirmed after Mirra's death. In 2016, at the age of 41, he died by suicide after years of dealing with depression and memory loss caused by his condition. If you or anyone you know is having suicidal thoughts, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline by dialing 988 or by calling 1-800-273-TALK 8255.